video games have now outpaced Hollywood films in terms of revenue, highlighting the immense influence of the gaming industry. However, many developers often take risks with their projects, leading to several failures. These games may have been rushed to market or overambitious in their scale and concept, making success uncertain. Even the biggest AAA studios aren't immune to setbacks when they push the limits of their resources. Despite a concept seeming like a surefire hit, there's no guarantee that players will respond positively. As developers invest increasing amounts of money into their titles each year, the stakes grow higher, with the potential for a single failure to drastically impact their financial success. So, the 10th biggest flop game on our list is Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk 2077 is a prime example of what happens when developers make grand promises but fail to deliver. While its aesthetic and world-building are undeniably impressive, the game ultimately falls short of expectations. Many fans were left disappointed because it wasn't the experience they were led to believe it would be. On top of that, technical issues persist despite numerous patches, making it a frustrating experience for many players. Although some still find enjoyment in it, the game was widely seen as a critical failure. CD Projekt Red has vowed to improve things, but their roadmap has been inconsistent at best and laughable at worst. The lack of DLC further weakens their efforts to keep the game relevant in the long run. And the 9th game on our list is Superman. The N64 version of Superman aimed to capitalize on the popularity of the animated series, hoping to turn it into a hit. However, Titus Interactive's ambitions far outstripped the console's capabilities, resulting in a game that barely resembled their original vision. Despite being marketed as a major success, VG Charts suggest that fewer than 500,000 copies were sold, largely due to the game's nearly unplayable mechanics, poor graphics, and uninspired design. Titus Interactive went on to release a series of forgettable games, including more failures like 2003's RoboCop, before ultimately shutting down. And on number 8, we have Duke Nukem Forever. Duke Nukem Forever spent years trapped in development hell, and when it finally launched in 2011, it was nothing like what fans had hoped for. Unlike the wildly popular Duke Nukem 3D, its sequel felt uninspired, riddled with cliches and downright offensive. The game's troubled production was further complicated by a legal battle between publisher Take-Two and 3D Realms over licensing rights as early as 2009. This chaotic development process resulted in a deeply flawed final product, which, according to VG Charts, had only sold about 886,510 copies by July 1, 2018, a far cry from a success. And on number 7, we have Daikatana. John Romero may have had Doom on his resume, but that wasn't enough to make Daikatana a success. The game was intended to be a next-generation first-person shooter that built on the genre's foundations, but a poorly conceived marketing campaign only raised expectations it couldn't meet. When it finally launched, behind schedule, both gamers and critics were deeply disappointed. Daikatana was projected to sell up to 2.5 million copies to break even, yet reality fell far short. A CNET report from July 2000 revealed that fewer than 10,000 copies had been sold at the time, and while PC Data later revised that number to around 40,000 units 2 months later, it was still a massive failure. And the 6th biggest flop game on our list is Def Jam Rap Star. Most games fail due to poor marketing, low quality, or a mix of both. Def Jam Rap Star, however, met its downfall because the developers put themselves in legal jeopardy, ultimately costing them everything. The game was meant to be a superior alternative to Get On Da Mic, a rap karaoke title released on the PlayStation 2 in 2004. While Def Jam Rap Star was a much stronger game, its fate was sealed when 4MM Games failed to properly license 54 tracks owned by EMI. This led to a lawsuit demanding around $8 million in damages, as reported by The Hollywood Reporter. Unable to sustain the legal battle, 4MM ran out of money, leading to the demise of both the studio and the game itself. And the fifth biggest flop game on our list is Tomb Raider: Angel of Darkness. Gamers owe a lot to Core Design, the studio that introduced the world to Lara Croft and the iconic Tomb Raider franchise in the late 20th century. However, they have only themselves to blame for the disaster that was Angel of Darkness. While a small portion of players found some redeeming qualities, the game remains a divisive topic among Tomb Raider fans. Despite strong sales, its reception from both critics and gamers was overwhelmingly negative. Plagued by bugs and frustrating mechanics, Angel of Darkness highlighted the growing fatigue with Core Design's approach to the series. As a result, the rights were handed over to Crystal Dynamics, who revitalized the franchise with a remake of the original game, featuring modernized visuals, controls, and gameplay. This laid the foundation for the acclaimed Tomb Raider reboot in 2013, which successfully brought the series back to prominence. And on number 4, we have Shenmue. Shenmue remains a groundbreaking title, beloved by dedicated fans for its ambition and its effort to push the limits of gaming at the time. However, first attempts are rarely perfect, and despite its innovation, the game struggled with technical issues that held it back. The Guardian reports that Sega invested a staggering $47 million into its development, an unheard-of sum for a game of its kind in 2000. While Shenmue's mechanics and design were highly influential, the cost was immense. Ultimately, its financial burden contributed to the downfall of Sega's final console, the Dreamcast. And the third biggest flop game on our list is Battlefield 5. Battlefield 5 was doomed before it even launched. Many players criticized its unrealistic weapon choices, character designs, and overall aesthetic, arguing that they strayed too far from historical accuracy. Rather than addressing concerns, EA dismissed the backlash outright, telling unhappy fans not to buy the game, advice that many took to heart. The negative response was so overwhelming that EA slashed the game's price to $29.99 less than a week after release. On top of that, Battlefield 5 suffered from numerous multiplayer issues, bugs, lackluster maps, and glaring visual glitches. Rushed to market, the game failed to meet expectations and flopped hard as a result. And on number 2, we have Marvel's Avengers. The video game adaptation of Marvel's Avengers is a clear example that even the biggest pop culture franchises aren't guaranteed success. While the game initially sold 2.2 million copies in its first month, sales quickly dropped off, leaving publisher Square Enix with a $65 million operating loss. Since then, the company has worked hard to turn things around, seeing some degree of improvement. However, the fact that such a massive comic and film property struggled so much in the gaming world was surprising. It also fueled speculation that superhero fatigue may finally be taking hold. And the last biggest flop game on our list is E.T. the Extraterrestrial. By now, the disaster that was the Atari 2600 version of E.T. is well documented. A rushed attempt to capitalize on the massive success of Steven Spielberg's film about a friendly alien and his human companion. What's more fascinating is just how much money Atari lost before finally moving on from this costly misstep. A Times Union article from January 1983 reported that the company spent a staggering $21 million just to acquire the licensing rights. After the holiday season ended, Atari had failed to sell 3 million copies, contributing to a total loss of $536 million that year. This marked the beginning of the end for Atari's dominance in the gaming industry. So, have you played any of these games? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.